Okay, so it finally happened this week. Puerto Rico has run out of money, at least the government has. And even though 99% it's the government's fault, I kind of wanted to talk about the role of the banking industry in the current crisis, because it really hasn't been discussed a lot in the media. Well, a lot of the issues haven't been discussed in the media, but yeah, I think banks should be discussed as part of the problem. Now, here is a bit of news that probably most people in the mainland United States were not aware of, and it's from the Wall Street Journal. This is back in April 2010. The main three largest banks in Puerto Rico were shut down by the FDIC. The thing about banks in Puerto Rico is that, obviously, since we're a territory, all the banks are federally regulated and insured. Now, these three banks were particularly mismanaged to the point where they had to be shut down. And here is the relevant point. Because it's federally insured, that shutdown cost the FDIC $7 billion. I see here. This is the other big point here. In total, those banks had $21 billion in assets and 30% of the island's deposits, and they failed in 2010. Now that's 5 years before the current bank, the current government financial crisis. Now, you can generally divide the types of bank problems into one, mismanagement, and two, fraud. And let's start with fraud, because this would be the clearest example. This is from 2007 U.S. Securities Exchange Commission. This was First Bank Corp, one of the local banks. They had lied about $4 billion worth of mortgage transactions. They pled guilty. Well, no, they didn't plead guilty. They just paid the fine. But again, they earned $100 million off this essentially fraud. Well, yeah, it does say fraud. So yeah, they earned $100 million off this fraudulent exchange of $4 billion. Now, let's look at the real world impact of that. Let's see if I can make this a little bit larger. This is the stock price for First Bank Corp. If you look at the historical price between the time at which the fraud was exposed in 2005 to present day, the bank stock has dropped in value 99.5%. So basically, everybody who was invested in First Bank lost 99.5% of their savings worth. So if you had $1 million invested in this bank, for example, right now you would only have $50,000 left. So let's move on. The other big fraud case was also around the same time period, 2006. This one, Doral Bank. They faked $1 billion in earnings over 4 years. Yeah. And in 2006, settled for fraud. And the CEO went to jail. I think he's still in jail. No, the treasurer, he went to jail. But again, back to the stock issue. The stock went from $50 to $10, and people who had invested in the bank lost $4 billion. Now, again, if you look at the historical price of the stock, the bank is currently closed and shut down this year. But again, if you look at the historical price of the stock, since the fraud began, was uncovered in 2004, 2005, the stock lost 99.5% of its value. It's worthless right now. So if you had your life savings put into this bank, you would be wiped out right now. You'd have nothing. You'd be on the street. And yeah, let's move on. Now, this is from the amended complaint against the bank filed in 2012. Let's read the relevant parts here. Now, number one, when the bank failed, it cost the Deposit Insurance Fund $1.46 billion in losses. Let's move on. The other thing is, here we go. Let me highlight it. Where's the highlight? Here we go. Between November 2004 and December 2008, the bank extended over $350 million in loans that any prudent banker would have known would probably never be repaid. And this is the, let me see. Here we go. Here we go. Grossly negligent failure to exercise due care and any business judgment in approving risky and underwritten loans. Grossly negligent failure to inform themselves about lending function. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, so why do I say that the banks contributed to current financial crisis? Well, number one, let's look back at, let's start with RG. The problem with the loans that were being made is that contractors were being paid generally to build luxury apartments, luxury homes, because the profit margin was larger for those homes. Now, the problem was that there's nobody to buy $1 million, $2 million apartments in Puerto Rico, because it's an island where the average person makes half as much money as somebody living in Mississippi. So there simply isn't a market. So they kept building and building all these luxury apartments and luxury homes, and there was nobody to buy them. So obviously, after nobody could buy them, the contractor can't pay back the loan, and then the bank fails. And now that's what we're dealing with. And that kind of crash in the economy means there's less tax revenue, there's less economic growth, ultimately, yes, less tax revenue, which means we can't pay the government debts that we owe. And here is the second half of the equation. Investing in Puerto Rico is triple exempt. That means if you invest in a Puerto Rican bank stock, that stock is immune from federal taxes, it's immune from state taxes, and it's immune from, municipal taxes? I see. Give me a second. Here we go. Federal, state, and local taxes, yeah. And that was, I believe that was introduced in around 2000 by the then governor to kind of incentivize investment in banks. But if we remember that, again, well, okay, wait, let me modify the time scale here. Okay, well, alright, let's look at the time frame here. In 2000, the law has changed to tell people to put their money into the banks. Now, between 2000 and 2005, banks experienced a 600% increase in the value of their stock. Everybody was putting their money into these banks, thinking everything was fine, everything's cool, the banks are making a huge amount of money, they're paying us money, everything is fine. Fast forward 10 years, oops, the banks were not making money, they were lying, they were losing money the whole time. Now, everybody who was putting money into the banks, as encouraged by the government, by the tax exemptions and incentives to put your money into the bank, now everybody is wiped out. Now, it depends who you want to, it depends where you want to, here we go. It depends where you want to calculate how much the losses were. But let's say easily $21 billion in Puerto Rican savings and investment money were zeroed out. So all of a sudden, that money is gone. And if you look at time frame, when those banks failed, that's when the recession started. So let's, where was I? So let's think about this. Because we've had zero economic growth between 2005, when this banking crisis began, and 2015, that is 10 years of economic growth that did not happen. And it was due to collusion between the banks and the government, local government at least. So, we do not have the tax income that would exist from 10 years of economic growth. For example, okay, let's say you're middle class John Doe. You had, let's say, a few $1 million saved up. If the banking crisis hadn't happened, that's money that you could be investing in the economy. You could start up a restaurant. You could start jobs. That money doesn't exist anymore. So the high unemployment that exists on the island, all this stuff, there's a direct link between the financial fraud and mismanagement that the banks were engaging in 2000 to 2004 and this mess that we're experiencing right now. Now, this isn't what's been discussed right now in the New York Times. This isn't what's been discussed in the Washington Post. All the focus is on the government borrowed too much money. All the focus is on we need to give Puerto Rico the ability to stop paying debts. But there's no discussion about just all the different things that went into this causes, and we shouldn't forget that. Look, yeah, a lot of people have had their life savings destroyed. There are people in jail. There are executives being sued for fraud and just gross negligence. And it shouldn't be ignored, and it shouldn't be forgotten. I'd say that is my point. That's the message here.